Welcome to the Sales Influence Podcast, where we talk about finding the why in how people buy. I'm your host, Victor Antonio, and today we're going to talk about how do you corner your client? Yes, cornering your client. What does that mean? How do we set them up? How do we set up our clients for the kill? Nah, that sounds too hard. Let's not do it that way. In other words, I want to talk today about how do you reduce price resistance by asking simple questions up front so when the customer sees the pricing, they don't freak out. I'm going to show you how to do this, and the best way of doing it is to really corner your customer. But you corner your client or your customer with their information. Let's set up the scenario. Let's pretend for a moment that you're selling a service. Now, this podcast is dedicated to all my people who sell services because they're always leaving messages on YouTube or my other social media channels saying, Victor, you just don't talk about selling services. Well, here it is just for you. So let's say you're selling a service, and let's say, I'm going to use myself as an example. Let's say I'm selling a $200,000 sales training package. Yes, I said $200,000 sales training package. See, immediately when you heard that, you're like, $200,000 sales training? Victor, my God, what type of sales training is that? That sounds too expensive. I get that all the time. Now I'm going to show you how I deal with that all the time. And here's the deal. So let's say that you're selling a service, a sales training service, and you do a presentation, right? You do a presentation, and the presentation is like, it's awesome. It's a great presentation. Everything is going well. And then you present the price. $200,000. At this point, the customer freaks out like, what? Just like the same reaction you had when I said $200,000, they also have. And you're like, $200,000? That's a lot of money, Victor. I don't know if we can afford that right now. Right now, that's, not in our budget. Let us think it over, right? Now, the customer's freaked out. They're going to say, we can't, that's too expensive, Victor. We're going to have to end this meeting right now, maybe get back to you, whatever it may be. Now, at this point, if you're a typical salesperson, you're going to defend yourself like, oh, but wait a minute, it's not expensive. It's, it's really, inexpensive compared to, the money you're losing. You really could make money with these sales training programs, blah, 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 blah. The customer is not even listening to you at this point. They have checked out. The price has freaked them out, has shut down their brain. They don't want to make a decision. That amygdala, that fight or flight has taken flight. They're out of there. They don't want to listen to you. So now, if we could go back into the matrix and rewind this whole scenario, how would we do it? What's the best way of selling a $200,000 service package or training package? Well, it begins by cornering your client, which is the topic of today's podcast. Now, what do I mean by cornering your client? Listen to the following statement. I heard this phrase many years ago, and it stuck with me, and I think it's a very valuable phrase that I would love for you to record because it is that valuable. The average salesperson practices what to say. The superior salesperson practices what to ask. Let me say it again. The average salesperson practices what to say. The superior, the best of the best salesperson practices what to ask. See, because there's power in controlling the conversation. Too often, we as salespeople think that the job of a salesperson is to talk, right? Present well, know the product, demonstrate how much you know, talk about, things you know, demonstrate your expertise. But in reality, the best salespeople know what to say. I'm sure they practice what to say, but they really focus on what questions they want to ask, because the questions you ask will guide the conversation. And when you're asking the right questions, you can guide, if not control, the conversation. Here's what I mean. Let's go back into the scenario. Let's say that before I presented my pricing, I said, Mr. Customer, before I get into my presentation, there's just a few questions I'd like to ask. Do you mind? What do you think the customer is going to say? In most cases, they're going to say, yeah, sure, Victor, go ahead, right? Ask me your questions. And I'll say, talk to me about what you sell. Now, I already know what they sell, but I just want them to explain it from their perspective. I've looked at your website, reviewed your product. I know what you sell, but you tell me, what is it that you're selling? Who are you trying to help? Tell me about, your market. And I let them talk, right? and they tell me how excited they are about their new product or new service that they're selling, right? And then I ask a question like, well, how many salespeople do you have? Like, how many pure salespeople do you have out there selling this product of yours? And let's say after, going back and forth, I said, no, just pure salespeople. They say 5, Victor. We have 5 people who are out there constantly pushing our product. This is great. I said, what's the average price of your product? And I go, well, Victor, it varies. From A to Z, we have different pricing. I said, I know, I get that. I said, but what's the average price? I mean, I know you guys know your data. What's the average price? Well, Victor, if we had to put a number on it, we say, $10,000 would be safe. Great. I write down $10,000. Now, for every salesperson, you got 5 salespeople. For every salesperson, how many deals do they close a month? How many deals are they actually closing a month? Well, Victor, it varies, this and that. Yeah, I know, Mr. Customer, but on average, how many deals? I always bring them back to, on average, how many deals? And I said, well, on average, Victor, we'll say 4. So they close 4 deals a month. Last question before I get into my presentation is, what's their close rate? What do you mean, Victor? Yeah, I mean, what's their close rate? I mean, if they were to go after 10 deals, how many would they close? I don't know, Victor. I mean, I'll take a guess. I mean, give me an average. I said, well, maybe 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10 deals. So 20%. So the close rate is 20%. I write that down. Okay? Now, this is data I already have. Now, so I said, well, Mr. Customer, the reason I'm asking you these questions is for the following, because I really want to understand your business. So you're telling me that your average deal is $10,000. That's correct, Victor. And you told me that on average, your salesperson closes about 4 deals a month, which means 10,000 times 4, you're generating 40,000 per salesperson. Is that correct? That is correct, Victor. So 40,000 per salesperson times 5 salespeople. That means right now for this particular product, you're generating $100,000 a month. That's about right, Victor. That's about right. I said, last thing. I just want to make sure I understand this. You told me your close rate is 20%. So for every 10 deals, they close 2. Is that what you said? He says, yeah, that's what I said, Victor. So, Mr. Customer, if you have a 20% close rate, if I do my math here, you have to put 20 deals in front of your client, your salespeople. In other words, your salespeople have to go after 20 opportunities, and they'll close 20% of that, which gives them 4 deals. Now, how did I arrive at that? Very simple. You take 4 deals, which is what they're closing, divided by 0.2, 20%, and you'll get 20, which means they have to have 20 deals in front of them, and if they close 20%, which is 4, that's how they get there. So in other words, they have to have 20 opportunities in order to close 4. So then I'll say, Mr. Customer, that means if your close rate is 4 deals rather, if your close rate is 4 deals, they have to have 20 deals just to close 4 at 20% close rate. Yeah, that's right, Victor. That sounds right. Well, that means they're losing 16 deals. If they're closing 4 out of 20, they're losing 16 deals. So 16 deals per salesperson times 10,000, that means that's $160,000 that's being lost in lost revenue. And if I multiply that out, Mr. Customer, by 5 salespeople, that means you're losing $800,000 in potential revenue. $800,000 per month in potential revenue. And if I were to multiply that out by 12, unless my numbers are wrong here, that's $9.6 million in lost opportunities, Mr. Customer. Now, what have I just done? I've just emphasized to the customer how much money they're losing. See, by asking these questions early, doing this analysis, I've created this, wow, I never really thought about how much money we were losing, Victor, until you brought it up. Now, let's go back to the presentation. So I said, Mr. Customer, I think we can help you with this. But let me ask you one last question before I jump into my presentation. If I could increase your deals by 1 per month, would that be useful? He says, I'm sure it would be, Victor. So let's say I then do the presentation, present the pricing. He's on $200,000. Then I'll say something like this. Mr. Customer, let me tell you what that $200,000 represents. If I could help, through our program, I can help your salespeople close 1 deal per month extra. So instead of closing 4, they're not closing 5, but they're closing 1 deal extra. That means each person is closing an extra $10,000. You have 5 salespeople. That means by simply closing 1 more deal every month, you're generating $50,000 more than you are today. And that's $50,000 total. Now, I'm selling you a program at $200,000, which means that if you can generate an additional $50,000 within 4 months, 200,000 divided by 50,000, within 4 months, you will hit a break-even point, which means this program will pay for itself in 4 months. Now, you see how that's a much more powerful and persuasive presentation because I have numbers, but I'm also using their numbers. But I'm also telling them where the break-even point is. But the best approach here is that you're asking these questions early, not later, because if you ask these questions early on, you control the conversation. You're using their numbers to control the flow of where you want them to go. But if you wait to the end to really talk about this, they're not going to want to give you the information. It's too late to ask for the information after you presented them at the price of $200,000. So the key here is early on, you want to corner your customer. Get that information that you need by asking great questions. And then after you present your price, you now have a way of structuring your presentation to let them know that it's not that much money. $200,000 is not a lot of money compared to the $800,000 per month that you're losing and the $9.6 million annual revenue that you're losing. Get the idea? By asking key questions early up front, you can control the flow of the conversation. Remember the saying, the average salesperson practices what to say. The best of the best superior salespeople practice what to ask, and that's what I want you to start doing. Ask questions early on. Know how to corner your client. Anyway, that's it for this Sales Influence podcast. Hope you enjoyed that one. I know it's a lot of math, so you might have to go back and review this one a second time. Anyway, don't forget to leave me some feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube. Let me know what you think. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, check out my sales training website, seminarsonselling.com, where you'll find great training videos for you or your team to help you grow your business. In other words, make more money. Lastly, I want to thank you for listening. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, sell again hard when you know how. Take care. Hi, I'm Victor Antonio. I'm an author, sales trainer, and keynote speaker. I'm often asked, what makes a great speaker? Is it someone who delivers real content that the audience can use? Is it someone who engages the audience so they're part of the learning experience? Or is it someone who can motivate an audience to push them beyond their comfort zone and discover new abilities? The answer is yes. But the most important thing to remember is that I'm not there to look good. I'm there to make my client look good. Simply put, it's never about me, and it's always about them.